turning out on hot compared to our candidates, who have been indefatigable in the course of this campaign, yo-yoing around the country in what appears to be a random course of up, down, and across. But I think it shows that UKIP still is a lively and vibrant democratic organisation. In spite of all the difficulties of recent months, since the Brexit Party mushroomed onto the scene, there is still an appetite for the sort of party that UKIP is. And the big difference, of course, between us and the Brexit Party is that they don't have leadership elections in the Brexit Party, because although they have somebody who's called the leader, he is actually the proprietor of the Brexit Party, and he is the sole shareholder of the Brexit Party, as I understand it. So annual general meetings are very easy to predict if there's ever a vote, because it's one man, one vote, and that one man is Nigel Farage. But in UKIP, we are a body of people with, how should we say, opinions, and we very often differ with one another on issues internally. But the one thing that we're not short of in UKIP is vigorous debate and a choice of candidates when we have elections. And I think it's very encouraging that we have 4 candidates who are standing for the leadership of this party. Helena Windsor is here today in place of Mike Hookem, who can't be with us. And we've got Freddy Vachha and Braine and then Walker, who are between them the 4 candidates who are still in the race. And so it's not for me to make my own speech, because I'm not a candidate for this election, but I'd like to hand over, therefore, to Tom Harrison, who, as you all know, works in the Assembly for me, and formerly with the UKIP group. And Tom is going to take charge of the formal parts of the proceedings today. And Christian John is our timekeeper, and so he will ensure that everything follows the rules, which is also something that UKIP is very good at watching. So I will now hand over to Tom, and let him take charge of the proceedings.
What we'll be doing is we're going to have some opening statements for 5 minutes for each candidate. We'll start with Richard, then Freddy, then Ben, and then Helena, as Neil says, is standing in for Michael, who can't be here. After the statements, we'll move on to some questions. Thank you to those that have submitted their questions. Now, they might not be word for word, because some people obviously submitted very similar questions, but I've tried to incorporate what everyone submitted to me. There are 6 of those. Now, if we get through those 6 and we have time, then we'll take some questions from the floor, which I hope we will have time for, and then we'll move on just to 2 minutes from each candidate and their closing remarks. So, to start off with, I'll go straight on to Richard for your 5 minutes opening statement.
Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you all very, very much for coming. I love the Kippers. I love meeting the Kippers. I hope some of you are going to come and have a drink in the bar afterwards, and we can chat about everything. I know that lots of you put a lot of effort into campaigning for the party and for Brexit, and we pulled off a fantastic miracle in 2016. We should be very proud of it, very proud of UKIP's achievement for turning the world on its head and for reasserting the principle of nationhood, not just for this country, but it's changed Europe, it's changed the US, it's changed the international political scene. I'm going to say a few words about me. I'm from Chelsea in West London. I, as a teenager, decided that the EU was something like the Soviet Union, and it was a bad idea and a bad structure, and I've always supported the politics of British independence and leaving the EU. I did some work for the Referendum Party in the mid-90s, and when that disappeared, I then started supporting UKIP. I've never voted Tory, I've never voted Labour, I have never voted for anything except British independence. My grandfather went to sea on the Iron Duke, a dreadnought, during the First World War, and he was also in the Navy and was at sea during the Second World War. My father asked if he could go to Dartmouth, and he broke out of dormitory into the sand the night before his medical and learned the eye chart, because his eyes had gone off a bit at 15, but he was desperate to go to sea, so he cheated so that he could go to sea and use binoculars every day on destroyers. He was at D-Day. He's been awarded a Légion d'honneur by the French government. The French ambassador kissed him on both cheeks. My father's never kissed me, but he has kissed the French ambassador. So standing up for British independence, political independence, runs in my family. I work hard for UKIP. I'm the chairman of West London branch, but I also get involved in London activity and, in fact, activity all over the country. I've been to Newport to help Neil with his campaign here a few months ago, putting out leaflets. I design leaflets, I write software, and I try to help the party do everything it can to succeed. I want to say a quick word about Gerard. Gerard should be standing in this. It should be the members that choose who leads this party, not the NEC, but the members. That's my view. If the members don't like Gerard or the direction he went in, then the members should have the right to make that clear in a leadership election, the members. In 2017, we got 1.8%. In fact, ever since the Brexit referendum, we haven't performed well. Why? Because all the other parties started to say, we're going to deliver Brexit. And large numbers of UKIP supporters went back to the Tories, went back to Labour, because that's what they thought they would get. That's the source, the real source of our current performance. For years and years, 17 years, UKIP bumbled along on 1 or 2%, and then the shark fin shape happened as we grew in popularity 2010, 2013, and achieved this amazing result in 2016. But after that, wallow. Our support disappeared. That's the real source of why we're not doing so well in the polls. But we need to build again. We need to have another shark fin. And we will if we stick to our principles and we keep telling the truth about what's happening in this country, what matters in our politics. We need to talk about immigration. We need to talk about our brilliant manifesto, which is brilliant, and we need to get it out there. And that's one of the things we've been failing to do. UKIP is one of the most united parties, probably the most united party in the country, because we all agree on most of these issues. Even when it comes to the divisive issue of Tommy and Islam and all of that, often it's just a disagreement about how we present ourselves, how we talk about it. But I hope we can all agree that it must be talked about. Perhaps it shouldn't be our top policy, and perhaps we shouldn't be talking about it so much, but we shouldn't be scared of talking about it. We shouldn't be bullied by the mainstream media into not talking about it. I've developed tools, software tools, canvassing tools, so that you can go out and actually meet people who support us, get them on the record, so that we've got them on the database, so that we can grow our membership and gain support. UKIP is the party that says the unsayable. That's how we achieved our great victory, and that's what we've got to keep on doing. We need to have the courage to keep saying things even when it makes us unpopular. So we need to get out there, we need to talk amongst ourselves particularly. I'm also going to deliver a policy forum software where all members can vote up or down the policies and suggestions of other members, so that the leadership and the NEC get put in front of them every month what the members care about, what the members are voting on, what's popular with the members. That's how you reconnect the party with our support and with our members. Everyone's talking about it, there's lots of waffle, but I'm actually going to deliver you the tools to do that and to grow our share of the vote steadily. The tools are vital so that you can do the great work that you've done in the past, but more efficiently. I'm the person who's going to make that happen for you if I'm needed.
Friends, I'm Freddy Vachha. I'm the regional chairman of UKIP in London, or Londonist Town, as some would have it. I have the ability to fight against ridiculous odds for extended periods, otherwise I wouldn't be the regional chairman of London. You have an easy time in Wales, my friends. Now, several of you have slipped in afterwards, so you haven't seen my brief CV. Yes, I do have a sense of humour. The bit in yellow is a letter from Stuart Agnew, MEP until a few days ago, and one of our most trusted members. He describes myself in glowing terms, which I would be far too modest to put. We face an existential threat in UKIP. We have to get money, we have to continue to fight and survive, because we are the thin purple line. Without us, there is nothing. to believe that the Tory party is going to help or the subsumed Brexit party is going to help. They may exist for the longer term. We can't count on them just disappearing into the Conservative Party, though they may well do. All of these are threats to our existence. We have to therefore find what a sensible person like me would have called white space between us, except that that's politically incorrect now. And I'm on good behavior today just for the first couple of minutes. I promise to revert to form very shortly, which is highly politically incorrect. Now, we need a leader who leads. It's a leader who will, the fact that I'm a computer software expert, and lines 16 to 18 of page 2 of my CV will tell you 150 programs, published many of them which were considered to be impossible first. I would certainly work in a collegiate manner with Richard, who is, in my opinion, currently the best activist in London, and it certainly is a very talented person. But, and I would hope to play a role in further improving his software. But software is not that which makes the leaders. Hardware is, and it's the hardware between your ears. And I have Google permanently installed, and if you believe that, my God, you'll believe anything. Just rub it over here, and I can tend to answer quite a few questions correctly. However, you need a leader with some charisma, and a leader who likes to fight, and fight fairly, but as a matter of good form. A leader who actually enjoys it, who wants to see them, look at the whites of their eyes when it's upper. And who are the they I'm talking about? Mainly our implacable enemy in the mainstream media. A bunch of scoundrels and rascals. It doesn't matter which bit's coming out, whether it's the Groniad bit or the Daily Mirror or Sky News or the BBC. It's all the same. It's a multi-headed hydra, but it is one beast. Believe it or not. I am known for my precision with English, and my computer software company was called Digital Precision. Look it up and you may be surprised. I made enough to retire when I was 29. I have not cruised since then because that would be very bad form. I've continued to work because working makes me happy. I sleep for 4.5 hours a night. Anything less than that makes me grumpy, and anything much more than that makes me far too eager to kill. And then I get people feeling sympathy for my opponents. People here are not my opponents. These are our friends. We are, as Richard said, quite a collegiate bunch. No single person can do this alone without a proper and powerful team. However, you need a leader who leads and will fight, because if we don't fight, we're heading for oblivion. We can't use cheap tricks like Carl Benjamin or Tommy Robinson to get stuff. It just backfires badly. I would work with Carl Benjamin. An interview of mine with Carl Benjamin, a battle royale, is apparently on the internet now. I'm not certain, because I was driving down from Manchester. As Neil correctly described, we were up, down, up, down, up, down, and then we did a big circle and so on. So my car odometer registers about 2,500 miles for this so far, which possibly accounts for my slightly disheveled appearance since I was in Belfast at 8:30. And since then have not really had a chance to rest. But this is perhaps intentional on the part of UKIP. Perhaps we are doing mad things for good reasons. Because if the leader can't keep up with his schedule, then the leader's not going to be able to lead. Because there's going to be problems. Now, I entreat you to read about me here, because I cannot condense this. I have first-class degrees in physics and mathematics. I'm qualified as an accountant. I trained with Ernst & Young, as she now is. But I'm not an accountant. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I like running businesses, and UKIP is a business in the end of the day. And what its mode of currency is votes. Because votes are what makes things important, and we need to get votes. When we get votes, we get a stick, and a stick with which we will beat the other parties. Because trying to do negotiations with them, unless we are very strong, is completely ridiculous. Possibly when we are strong, it is ridiculous as well, but for a different reason. Right now, it's even pointless to think about. We are in electoral irrelevance. If a general election comes, under me, we will contest every single seat that there is. Please vote for me. No doubt you can ask me pressing questions as it comes, and I'll be keen and eager to answer them. Thank you for being here, my friends.
And Ben Moore.
Good afternoon, everybody. Absolutely brilliant to see so many of you here today on, as Neil said, a sweaty, muggy, horrible summer's day that we all like to moan about. Right, who am I? My name is Ben Walker. I was unlucky enough to stand in 2017, and I'm here again. You haven't got rid of me yet, so I am back. I am a current serving member of the NEC. Please, no boos and no hisses, okay? That process that Richard has talked about with Gerard, I've been quite clear on that. I actually do believe that Gerard should have been able to stand, but being a leadership candidate, I have had no involvement in that decision. And that's kind of actually the way I like it. So, but no, I think he should be here. I would much rather have beaten him in a fair fight. So that's that. Myself, I run my own business. I've been involved in UKIP since 2011. I set up my branch, so I was the founding member of our branch, which runs today. And I've been an activist for UKIP ever since, parliamentary elections, you name it. So I've done all the UKIP things. Myself, again, I'm ex-Royal Navy. That was the first time I've heard that from you, which was great. I'm ex-Royal Navy. I served in the Afghan War, and I served on Type 42 destroyers. Absolutely brilliant. I didn't know that about Richard's dad, but there you go. So that's me in a nutshell. Now, we can talk all day long about who we are, and hopefully you can go online and you can see that, and you'll see it in the magazine. The most important thing is where we're going. And I think at the moment, UKIPers you've been presented with a real choice. You're being presented with a choice of a new direction, new thinking, new ethos, or more of the same. Now, without getting too political, if you like, our current direction hasn't worked for us. It just hasn't. Regardless of whether you agree with the messaging or not, we've had our worst European election results since 1994. We've had our biggest net loss of councillors ever. We're polling at less than 1%. Now, if you ask me, and I'm no scientist, but the problem is, if you keep doing that, we're not going to be around for too much longer. So what I'm saying to you is trust in me. And the reason I'm saying that as well is because I want UKIP to become a go grassroots campaigning machine, concentrating on its membership, concentrating on local government and assemblies, in fact, like you have here in Wales. We have to be the party that concentrates at the bottom. Because the truth of the matter is, if you do not concentrate on the bottom, you can stand for as many parliamentary by-elections as you want, Westminster elections, it doesn't matter. Without a strong footing, you've got nothing. And UKIP's biggest and greatest asset has always been its membership. And I am sure that, like me, you are sick and tired of being asked for money, being given no support, being given no real direction. Our structure is crumbling, and it needs to be fortified. We need to change this. And again, I say again, the only way we're going to do this is by utilising the talent that exists within our membership. And I know that we've hemorrhaged lots of good people and lots of talent in recent times. But the truth is, there's still great people here now. Now, I'm lucky enough to have been supported by Gareth Bennett, who obviously you all know very well, who was a leadership candidate, has backed out to support me, and also Neil. Neil was happy enough to support my campaign, of which I'm very grateful for. And also Hugh, who was my proposer, a founding member, who resides in Wales. Now, moving forward, like I said, you'll hear more about this in the questioning, I am sure, but my focus is you. My focus is the membership, and my focus is building from the grassroots up. I want to turn UKIP on its head. It's the only way we're going to succeed to move forward. But you need to go online and you need to look at all the manifesto details there. I have a Go Grassroots manifesto, which wasn't written by me. It was written by branch officers, people like you, who know their onions and are doing this day in, day out, because I want to carry the membership with me. Freddie mentioned about not being able to do this on your own, and I think that's very admirable and it's very true. The truth is, I'm not big enough and ugly enough to do this on my own. The only way we can do this is do it together. And hopefully, if you are good enough to lend me your vote, I promise you that we will do this. And I promise you, we will become a relevant party again, winning elections. Because when I joined UKIP in 2011, I joined it because it was a progressive, exciting, political party wanting to succeed at the ballot box. And we're not. But that's where we should be, and I promise you, vote for me, that's what you're going to get. I believe in UKIP, I believe in the Constitution, and much more importantly, I believe in all of you. So thank you very much.
And finally, Helena.
Right, well, thank you you very much, Tom, for letting me speak on behalf of Mike. I think you've got Mike's feminine side, and he does apologise that he can't be here in person. Now, I too was a candidate, like Gareth. We spent a long time talking. What Mike has to say and what he believes in was so close to what I wanted to offer that I decided to back him. You have another, like Ben, another candidate who served his country in our armed services. So this is Mike's voice. Today, UKIP stands at a critical juncture in its history. Do we go down the road of becoming a niche street protest group, or do we get a grip and regain our position as a real alternative to the establishment parties of Westminster? In this election, you're not merely selecting a leader. You are deciding on the direction this party will take for years to come. If you believe, like I do, that the party should reject any form of extremism and challenge for Westminster seats, then you will agree that we need to reclaim our position as the party of common sense and the real party of Brexit. A party the public will vote for. Let us not underestimate the task ahead. After 18 months of decline into the fringes of British politics, UKIP stands at less than 1% in the Westminster polls, and our media presence has been destroyed. This is why UKIP needs a leader who can lead from the front in taking on the significant internal and external challenges involved in rebuilding our party. A leader who will build a professional team to take the party forward. Someone who can put in place new internal and external communication structure to maximise the broad range of skill sets our party contains and effectively communicate to our members. A leader who can make us a capable and competent electoral force moving forward, who seeks not only to represent the views of the membership, but the majority of people in this country who are sick and tired of the Westminster status quo. Someone who listens, learns and delegates to maximum effect, who can reclaim our public profile and rebuild public confidence in UKIP's image. However, above all, we want a leader who can bring back common sense to the party that championed this concept in politics in the first place. I believe I'm the person who can deliver all these things. My political party didn't start at university with a PPE degree, like so many of today's politicians. My political journey began in Hull's fishing community, into which I was born, and further developed on the building sites of Britain as I saw firsthand the effects of EU policy and Westminster weakness. As a working man, at the time Labour opened the floodgates on mass immigration, I became increasingly disillusioned with the disconnect between the establishment and ordinary working people. This situation caused me to look for a party that could offer a real alternative. Since joining UKIP in 2007, I've held posts at every level in the party, from branch chairman to deputy leader, MEP to head of delegation for the EFDD for the UK. My background forms a significant part of the politician I've become, and I still retain my original objective for involvement in politics in the first place, to help people towards a better life, a better standard of living, a fairer society, freedom of thought and speech, and protection from those who aim to endanger those values. This is why, as UKIP leader, my focus will be on policy. I will not tolerate policies that seek to divide and make our great party nothing more than a political pariah. I believe our constitution is sound in demanding the party will conduct itself and in its affairs in such a way it does not discriminate against any person on the grounds of their race, religion, ethnic origin, education, beliefs, sexual orientation, class or social status. I will lead a UKIP with policies based in common sense, whether it be the equal application of the law, a simplified tax system, or effective defence of our realm. I want policy positions that are easy to understand, easily communicated, and which the general public will not be afraid to champion. I want policies that aim to protect our great nation, ensure Brexit becomes a reality and is the success we all envision. I also want to be a leader who's progressive in how we interact with our membership and how we develop policy. I will push forward with plans for more direct democracy within UKIP using modern technology to provide members and officials with more interaction and transparency than we've had. But there must be a drastic change if we're to be a party that genuinely represents our membership. I will launch an immediate consultation with the membership to make September's conference AGM the catalyst of real change. I'd like to see changes made to the Constitution that will allow each region of the country to be represented at the top table through creating a new NEC made up of regional chairs that you elect. Side by side with this change, I'd seek to create a new board structure, a professional body to make the party more responsive and flexible at both regional and national level, No longer can we tolerate any areas of our party feeling alienated or ignored. UKIP's biggest asset is you, the membership. It's your party and it must represent who and what we are politically. This is my vision for UKIP and I hope you can lend me your vote to deliver this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for those opening statements. We'll now move on to the questions which people have submitted. The candidates haven't seen the questions before they're answering them, so we'll mix up the order which they'll be answered. But the first question, and we'll start with... If we can keep it fairly brief, but a minute or so is fine. The first question, and we'll start with Ben and then go to Freddy, then Richard and then Helena, I think. But the first question is, before the referendum in 2016, UKIP had a flagship policy of leaving the European Union. Since then, UKIP's decline can partly be attributed to the lack of a unique selling point. If elected, which policy or policies do you intend to promote as UKIP's USP? And we'll start with Ben.
Okay, a minute's not enough to talk about the policies that we need to run with moving forward. But what I would say, the first thing it has to be, like I mentioned earlier, you guys. Our focus now has to be its membership. That is our strength. Which is why, moving forward, if elected your leader, I want you guys to be the spokesman. So if you've got talent, expertise in the trade, you apply, you become the spokesman. And with support from the party, we show the public that we're actually a party of the people. That's the first thing. Secondly, I think we need to be the party of post-Brexit. We're always going to be the party that won the referendum, but we need to be the party of post-Brexit moving forward. Saying things like, let's scrap VAT. Let's revoke the parental rights of grooming gang rapists. Let's stand up for our homeless people, the 300,000 of them on our streets today, many of which are ex-servicemen and women. Let's be the party of law and order. Let's be the party of defence. There's key policies, and I think we need those big shopfront policy kind of ideas that we have to roll out. But again, it's you guys who are going to do that. So with a restructured party, one that focuses on local government and focuses on the support of its branches, members and its candidates, we can do this. And we're going to show the general public once again that we are a party that is completely different than the mainstream parties that we currently have, that consistently fail the electorate. Thanks.
When choosing our direction, we have to understand the battlefield, because it is a battlefield out there. The battlefield, which we should, in my opinion, primarily concern ourselves right at the beginning, is twofold. One is Labour in the north, and two is the Brexit Party everywhere. We need USPs versus them. Now, currently we have an open goal with Labour. They're run by a madman, with a combination of madmen around him. These are people who are seriously deranged. They should be institutionalised immediately. In London, we have many such facilities for them, but currently they have not been incarcerated. The Brexit Party represents a greater problem, because many good people from UKIP have gone there. Trying to demonise them is just ridiculous. These are people who just had enough of this Tommy stuff or other stuff. And maybe they made a wrong decision, but they left. We want to get them back, but we also want to create in the vast bulk of the general public, not just the 17,410,741 plus myself who voted for the referendum, but plenty others too, to see that we are the party to vote for and not the Brexit Party. The unique selling point for us with respect to the Brexit Party is simply this. It's immigration, it's overcrowding, and the fact that you have to time your call to the doctor to exactly a few seconds past 8:30. The fact that the roads are full of cars with people who, many of whom should not be here. And this is even in South Wales. In London it is at epidemic proportions. It is linked to everything else. It is linked to crime. The police are helpless to solve it with our crazy open borders policy and a needs-based benefit system, together with a open door immigration and a refugee system that is a joke. All of these are open goals for us. Nigel won't dare to take on these. In the penultimate line of what Stuart Agnew wrote about me, he has said, Nigel is frightened of only one person being the leader of UKIP, and that person is me, because I will beat him at the Hustings. I will beat him when it's face to face, and he knows it. Thank you.
Many of you will be aware that Boris Johnson is very, very soft on immigration. He wants lots more of it. This was a driving policy in the referendum. It's still an absolutely burning issue. I agree with most of what Freddy has just said. We have to make immigration our number one policy. We have to get it under control. We have to have a plan to do that. And that means we need proper biometric tests for every visitor coming into this country so that we have the information and the database so that we can stop people abusing our welfare system, abusing our health service, coming here. I live near Chelsea and Westminster Hospital. It is frequently visited by people who have just flown in from West Africa and elsewhere in the world for free healthcare. So that is the number one issue that we need to get out there. But I also agree with Ben. We need a policy forum so that what members care about policy-wise is in front of the leadership. I've already mentioned that. Ben says we're going to do that. I've got a plan for actually doing it. But how are older people going to be able to contact that forum and be in touch with it? We've got a fantastic new set of youngsters coming into the party, the young independents. Some of the younger YouTubers have been getting lots of youth involved, and we need to actually have the youngsters in the party adopt the seniors and say, this is how you use a smartphone, this is how you tweet, this is how you get the message out there. The problem is immigration and overcrowding. We need to talk about it a lot more. A lot of other problems in this country arise because of that. It's a crucial policy.
Right, now, the core principle of UKIP, I think we'd all agree, is a belief in sovereignty. Now, all the candidates have mentioned immigration. Mike experienced that, what did Labour call it? Rubbing Conservatives' noses in diversity, just letting this massive influx come. So we have to push for fairer immigration. We have to push for illegal means illegal. I'm going to be very careful here not to put my own personal USPs on freedom of speech and scientific integrity being applied to government decisions. But I can assure you, when I have Mike's ear, you'll be getting that. So I think these are our unique selling points. What we've got now is, yes, we've got a Conservative Party which we have at last under Boris some understanding that we've got a bright future outside the EU. But none of the other parties think we have. It's an absolute disaster, and the Conservative Party is still divided. So that is surely a unique selling point we've got to push, and I know Mike will be pushing it. Beyond Brexit, we've got a bright economic future, and this is what he means by policy-based road forward. Economics, sound economic future. Haven't seen it yet from the others, have you?
Moving on, question 2, which is UKIP cannot rely on the donations from members alone to fund the party. How do you propose to fund UKIP so it can fight elections effectively? And we'll start with Freddy, then Helena, then Richard, and Ben.
This allows me to combine two answers into one. I'm always one for efficiency, being a business person. While on the first Hustings, I was late because I was speaking to a potential donor. The problem we have is not that there are people who are unwilling, there are a large number of people unwilling to put their money into somewhat right-of-centre party politics. It's that they do not want to be their names associated with toxic stuff, and the Political Parties Elections and Referendums Act 2000, PAPERA, unfortunately means that their names will be disclosed. There is no effective, reliable way of hiding who the donor is. And this is necessary and important. We don't want shady donors. We don't want people with vested interests. There are a few of them already operating within this party, and I would seek to distance ourselves from some of them. Our agenda is the United Kingdom, not the other side of the world, the Middle East, etc. Now, I was in discussions with such a person just on the day of the first Hustings, which seems a million years ago, but was in fact just 2 weeks ago in Devon. While driving to Devon, I was late, and my eyes filled with tears because the sunlight was coming through the trees, and I saw something which is easy to remember if I was lucky to be living in Wales, as maybe I will. Easy to remember if you're living in many other parts of the country, but in London, you don't see it anymore, and that's the England which you're actually fighting for. In London, we've lost it. The shell is there, but the rest is lost, and that's what we've got to fight for. I won't do the Jerusalem bit, and I don't sing properly, but it is a useful reminder. But we need large donors, we need them quickly, we need to detoxify, cut the link with the past, cut, sever, and move on. We're a party of freedom, we will win.
It is a fact, whether you want to face it or not, that we have lost in recent year or thereabouts serious donors to this party. We have lost them because of the direction we have taken. They do not want anything more to do with us. We have probably not attracted much in way of new donors. There was a recent letter which went out to the patrons, members of the Patrons Club, of which my husband and I are members, to which my husband said, I'm not sure I want to be a patron anymore. It was soliciting donations to the legal action. Now, I know for a fact that there are donors who have withdrawn their funding, who have ceased to support us financially, who, if Mike is elected leader, will come back. It may be, if we make the right change of direction under other candidates here, they will be able to attract them back too. But we will get these donors. I believe also that if we take the right lines, take the right direction, as this country closes down on people's ability to speak freely, to move about freely online, that we will open ourselves up to potential new donors in certain fields where they are being demonetised, etc.
The first thing is we need to approach the previous existing donors and the patrons. After my patrons interview at Eastbourne, one of the patrons came out of the interview room because he wanted to talk to me about sponsoring the software packages that I'm already developing that I'm going to make available to the party free of charge. The canvassing software is going to bring in new members in numbers because we're going to actually at last knock on doors and record who really supports us. And after an election, if you've used that software, you can send a letter to everybody who said that they supported UKIP, saying, please join us, please get involved. So membership will grow. That's where some of the money comes from. We've got a shop. It doesn't make enough money. There's a big plan to make the shop far more effective, not just selling UKIP items, but also selling items that are branded to do with a lot of the political interests that we're involved in. So that is, potentially could be a big growth in income from the shop. And there's also crowdfunding. Don't forget that people like Carl, and we're learning from him, go online and they get an amazing number of donations from people, often overseas, often in the US, often in New Zealand. Now, those donations can only be up to £500 each, but if you get a lot of them in, then it counts for serious income. So we can get donations from abroad. People are watching this country. They want to help us reassert nationhood. So there's lots of areas, but the main thing is let's waste less. Let's use our money more efficiently, and my software is going to help us to do that so few people can deliver a great result on a far smaller budget.
Policy is so closely intertwined to donors being involved in the party, and like we mentioned earlier, big policy ideas at the front, that will attract donors back. We currently don't have any donors. We have patrons and we have the membership, and that isn't enough to survive as a political party. But a policy, for example, let's scrap the Welsh Assembly. Hey, how about that? I'm sure that'll get some people on board. But there you go. But when it comes to fundraising, I genuinely believe that we should have someone who is employed to do solely that. And I don't believe in handing out lots of positions or paid positions in the party. But I do believe that we need a paid fundraiser who is going to look at ways to try and get donors back on board, to actually think outside the box. And like Richard said as well, look at some of the ways whereby some of the YouTube people online are actually gaining money and getting money in, because that's going to help us in many other ways. But that person specifically employed and involved to fundraise and nothing else. And I would also like a situation whereby maybe they just get a very small basic and they actually have to fundraise for their own job as well, so it's commission based. So actually we can keep that wage down quite low. But it's got to be someone like that. It's got to be a professional person who can work with the leadership team to attract new donors in and old ones, but to think outside the box and get money in, which we didn't even think was there.
Okay, question 3, we're going to Richard, then Ben, then Helena, then Freddy. Question 3. At times, Welsh members have felt disconnected from the remainder of the party, with greater focus shown to other areas and regions of the UK. Considering the electoral opportunities in Wales, if elected, will Wales be a priority during your term as leader?
Well, yes, it will be. Don't forget that Wales has an assembly. We've just put out a leaflet for Liz in Brecon, and the last policy thing there is scrap the Assembly, and I know that that's popular with quite a lot of people in Wales. Others not, perhaps, but it was decided that in Brecon there's a significant number of people that are fed up with the wastage and with the behaviour of Labour in the Assembly. So that is very important, and I had a chat with Neil just earlier about the upcoming Assembly elections, and it's very important that we fund that properly and get as many candidates out as possible in that Assembly, because it is a shop window. People see UKIP candidates there. Unfortunately, some of them have defected recently and didn't behave well, but hopefully we've got rid of some of the dead wood, and next time we're going to have really committed UKIPers, and hopefully we're going to score a few hits in the Welsh Assembly. So that's very important. But I come back to this issue of a policy forum. That is going to be the means by which people can organise locally to discuss local issues, to discuss party issues, to discuss policy, and the most important thing is it will have peer review. That means everybody who can go on it can vote up or down the ideas that are put forward, so that the party can really see what people think at the grassroots on a week-by-week basis, so that there'll be much more transparency within the party, and that is going to help Wales get organised, get Welsh members together, and make sure that we've got a policy platform that's really suitable for Wales for the Welsh in Wales.
So I think, as a party, we need to focus and concentrate on areas which have been a success for us before. That has to be our focus. Where we've done well, let's get back there, let's work hard, and let's try and win there again. Now, on that list, Wales is there, firmly at the front. If I was your leader, Wales would be the #1 target area. And I'll tell you for why. The question kind of asks that and answers it in a way anyway. The voting mechanism in Wales probably gives us the best opportunity to have success at the ballot box in comparison to anywhere else in the UK. And we've done well in Wales before, and there's absolutely no reason why we can't and shouldn't do well here again. So I am promising you that if I'm elected, Wales will be up there. Wales has to be our target, where we can get more AMs, we can support them properly. And gone are the days whereby the central party are going to be enforcing lists that you do not want, okay, that you had no interest in and you had no involvement. Even the leaders, even the leader here had no idea of recent lists that have been handed down to them. I want members to decide the lists. Again, it's all got to be driven by you. But moving forward, Wales is #1 priority.
Thank you. Well, some of you know me. Some of you know my commitment to what you've been doing in Wales, because I came to your grassroots conference for what I could learn for Surrey. And when I was talking with Mike, when I made the decision to back him, it was very important to me that I knew what he wanted to do. You will find an insert in Mike's manifesto on all your seats. Is he going to listen to all the nations, by which of course we mean Wales, Northern Ireland and Scotland? You're not going to have lists imposed on you. The rigged lists are one of the more shameful episodes of UKIP, and of course it goes much further back. We all know who did those and why. So if you look at your flyer, he wants to look at having a cabinet system. Now I know how you work things in Wales, and I hope you will all talk to him if he is leader and make sure you get what you want. He is open to listening to you. But the most important thing is the local people here have their talents. You know what works in your part of the country, and without a doubt Ben is correct. When it comes to looking at those areas, Mike comes from a part of the country where it is ripe for votes, and there is no doubt that parts of Wales belong to that area and they should be our targets. So yes.
They pretty much said everything I was going to say. I have an advantage. I look Welsh. Further, though my knowledge of the Welsh language itself is mediocre, ghastly I think is the correct word, I do pronounce Welsh place names correctly, and I love Wales a lot. I've spent a lot of time in for example, in Carnarvon and in places like Anglesey, and lovely parts of Wales in the middle, which the English seem to have forgotten. but we are one country. Wales would get no special treatment from me. It would get the equal, important, vital treatment which all of the United Kingdom gets. UKIP's problems are not Wales, particularly Wales-oriented. They are UKIP is dysfunctional at all sorts of levels. There are all sorts of committees and groups, and just like it says in Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister, the more of them you have, the less that gets done. And they don't talk to each other very much, or what they talk is they argue among each other. And so you have all these various bodies, regional chairmen, regional organisers, NEC, other special interest groups, and so on. And there's no coordination of this. As a leader and as a natural businessman, I would rationalise this and make it efficient. All parts of the United Kingdom would benefit from it, and Wales is an integral and important part of the United Kingdom. Wales is the heart, the blood of this country. Wales is safe with me. Promise. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to question 4. About halfway through now, so we're getting through splendidly. We'll go first to Helena, then to Ben, then to Freddy, and then to Richard. Question 4. How do you propose to overcome the disconnect between the party hierarchy and the grassroots members? Helena first.
You know, I didn't envisage how difficult this would be as a former candidate with her own list of policies. If you look at the manifesto that's on your seats, you can see quite plainly, and as I mentioned earlier in his opening speech, Mike wants a complete change. Ben talks about grassroots, I talked about grassroots. You won't get the grassroots without putting the structure in place. And if you look at what we'll have, you will have the discussions on how you want the NEC to run, how you want the board to run, and how we get this up. There is a little sort of party structure thing there which you can look at and get an idea. But I think it's a bit of a coup of Mike's to say, let's get this open at the conference. Let's get straight on with it. We cannot afford to hang about. We've got to get straight in there and get this party sorted out and get it running on proper democratic lines. It did start very briefly after we got rid of Henry Bolton. And I'm speaking as a county chairman here. And that's why I came down to your grassroots conference, because we did start to get those channels building up and they went off again. I am absolutely determined, as a county chairman, that we will get this grassroots movement working and functioning correctly. And I know that Mike has that commitment to delivering it too, and it's there for you to read. Thank you.
Okay, so in 2017 I was still banging this drum about grassroots, and I'm doing it again now. This is the only way we are going to succeed moving forward. And I'm the only candidate who's lucky enough to have a specific policy or manifesto, if you like, written for this purpose. And it's written by branch officers and branch chairs, not me, by people who actually do this every day of their lives. This is how we have to do it. This is how you're going to engage the membership, by involving them. That's what I want. And I've mentioned earlier as well, when it comes to spokes roles, I want the membership to do that, where they have the talent. When it comes to policy, it's something I haven't talked about, others have. I'm very lucky, as mentioned, to have the backing of Neil and Gareth. Now, we do have some spare capacity within their wage or their staff, if you like, their staffing, whereby we're going to run a central policy unit, and we're going to have a live UKIP manifesto that's constantly evolving and being added to. So that policy unit is going to take ideas from the membership every day, by email, by phone, by fax, by pigeon, it doesn't matter. But anybody can engage with it, and it will be costed by that policy unit and presented to the NEC. The only way, like I keep saying, for us to succeed is to use you. We can't do this on our own, and it's you guys who have all of the ambition and the ideas, and if we want to be a true people's party, this is the way we're going to do it. And I promise you, let me all vote, the grassroots will come with me.
It's quite simple. To connect the grassroots with the upper hierarchy, you remove the disconnect. You connect them. It's really as simple as that. But words are cheap, actions are what counts. My very first action when I won by either 6-0 or 7-0, depending on whose version you take, the regional chairmanship of London 3.5 years ago, the very first thing I did was remove all the intermediate structures between the membership, that is branches, the only real unit that counts, and the region. So counties, districts I abolished, with the unanimous vote of our regional committee, which I persuaded. London is, of course, different from other regions. I'm not suggesting you take such drastic steps here, because you've got a lot of travelling to do. But in London is compact. Our madness is within a small circumference. Your beauty is spread over a large area. So actions speak louder than words. I abolished the middlemen, all these other ones which were being used to gerrymander election and change things in a negative way, and to directly, therefore, allow branches, any member, any committee member, to be able to just pick up the phone and speak to their regional chairman, myself. And that is the way to do it. You connect things up by removing disconnects, removing intermediate layers, simplifying structures, not by creating committees and doing all the yes minister things. Those programs were meant as proscriptions, not as prescriptions. And in UKIP, we're like cats. You can't herd cats. Let them do what they want to do with minimal structures, but common sense. Thank you.
Freddy's right. Henry Bolton came in as leader of this party, and he produced endless documents about how he was going to structure this, and committees about that, and committees about the other, and nothing ever happened. I actually attended meetings of some of these groups, and it was just pointless. It was all hot air. The whole thing of restructuring is just nonsense. We need less structure. Freddy's right. How do you then put members in touch with the leadership if you have less structure? You need to have a policy forum that is something online that people can go to, put forward an idea, and know that if people vote for it and like it, it will go in front of the NEC, it will go in front of the leadership. That's what I'm going to provide you. There is too much structure. An online database of this kind means that people will be able to contact the leader, contact members of the NEC, contact people in other branches. There'll be a means to actually get in touch with the people who know stuff, because the party's full of talented people and who have amazing skills and experience, and we don't use it. I'm going to appoint a head of human resources. That role, it sounds corporate, but what it means is we need to have someone in the party whose job it is to compile who knows how to do what in the party, who has expertise, who you need to speak to if you want to solve a particular problem. We need to have an elected head of councillor support. The councillors, the elected councillors, including AMs as well, by the way, should be able to vote for the person whose job it is to support them all, make sure that they can all do their jobs properly. But the main point is remove the Chinese whispers, remove the structure, put in place a system or a tool that enables people to talk to each other, and whoosh, it will happen, because that's what we all want to do. We know we see it when we go to the conference. All UKIPers love to talk to each other about how we can get on with it and solve the problems.
Question 5. This has briefly been touched on already, but I know it's an issue that I got about 4 or 5 emails, all that very similar around this question. So you have touched on it, but it's extremely important. We'll start with Freddy, then Richard, then Ben, then Helena. In Welsh Assembly elections, the default voting system incorporates an element of proportional representation and heightens the chances of UKIP achieving electoral success. What selection process of UKIP list candidates would you be in favour of for the 5 electoral regions of Wales?
Firstly, it's the hunt, not the hunt.
Oh,
there you go. I'm very familiar with this as a mathematician. If you were isolated in a desert island and you were given the problem of creating a fair proportional representation system, you would come up with the Thomas Jefferson method, also called DANT. They both discovered it independently. They look different, but they always produce identical results. So therefore, by definition, they are congruent or identical. Now, the Hunt system, I'll answer the question. It's very easy. To select the candidates who are going to go down that list, you have an open, transparent system where you, who represent the constituents of the Welsh Assembly, cast your votes. And they don't go into a box which then goes into somebody's bedroom overnight. I speak about the reality of what happened in London, which is that I'm too polite to say. In Wales it was rather better, but there were still attempts to corrupt the system. We don't do gerrymandering, that's what Labour and all that do. We are UKIP. We must not allow this filth and corruption to take place in our party again. So we will have open, transparent selection of candidates. But the hunt opens up another field to me. The question is so easy to answer. For our NEC, you want regional representation to some extent, but your region is only 40% the size of London in terms of number of people living inside. So you have an NEC composed of two parts, a directly elected lot and a list lot. Yeah? But the candidates within UKIP for this are selected by open election. Thank you.
Jefferson invented it first, and it should be called Jefferson.
Absolutely.
Jefferson is a nice English name, so there's no reason why we shouldn't call it Jefferson.
Except he was American.
So the main thing is this needs to be simple. I've already written the database for the sake of the canvassing system so that we actually can see which postcodes are in which regions. So people's postcodes should determine which region their vote counts towards. That's very simple. It can be done quite simply in a spreadsheet or in a database, and that would mean that you would be actually choosing, the people that live in an area will be choosing the candidate for that area, and they should be able to simply vote for the candidate that they prefer. That's it, nice and simple, all done. Admittedly, there will be areas that have few voters. Well, if the people who don't live in that area don't like it, tough, because they don't live in that area. So those areas that have few voters, the voters there have more power to elect. So be it. No system is perfect.
So I've touched on it earlier, your area, Wales as a whole, has to be a target for our party. It's one of the areas where we're going to get our best success moving forward. I wouldn't talk about the system, I don't think that's what the question was. Basically, the system that has to be in place for these sorts of elections, if you like, is that you guys are written to, just as you were for the leadership of Wales itself. You're written to and you vote. So you'll know the people that are candidates locally, you'll know who's in the branches, whatever. It's you that votes, and that will be run centrally by the party, and that would involve the leadership of Wales per se in this example. But it has to be about you, and I want to see you running with that and making the decision. Anything else is just rubbish and it should be put into the bin. I don't want to see lists that are imposed on you for people that you don't know and you do not want. It has to be run by the central party, you're written to, you vote, it goes back, done, result. It's as simple as that.
Well, I think we all know why this question was asked, don't we? And I have to say, never again do I want to see in UKIP rigged lists, corruption. I think Freddy intimated, and he's correct, by the way, that you were not alone. You were not the only ones who were not listened to, who had things imposed upon you. I would not have supported Mike if I could not believe that he was going to be an honest person who would never allow this to happen again. Now, we were talking about the restructuring. This is what he says about direct democracy. I will push forward with plans for more direct democracy within UKIP using modern technology and communications to provide members and officials with more interaction and transparency than has ever gone before. Now, you have your meetings, you have your structure. It should be for you to be discussing with the leadership how you want to arrange your lists and how you want to vote for those people who are going to represent you on the Assembly. We don't want any more infighting because we've had people that one group of you doesn't support. I mean, I know that you've had a few moments of being like ferrets in the sand. Don't want to take that bit back home. So, yes, you should be the people who decide. It's your Wales, it's your Assembly.
Okay, and the final submitted question, it's fairly long, so do bear with me. Parachuting in candidates for elections, we'll come to Richard first, then Helena, Ben, and then Fred. Parachuting in candidates for elections has always been a consistent grievance to local branch members. However, the anxieties of senior party officials that we must have candidates who not only know UKIP policies inside out, but can also handle the attempts of the mainstream media to misrepresent and interrogate any UKIP candidate is also understandable. With this in mind, how do you intend to recruit and provide training for candidates at a local level? And I'll read that again if anyone needs it.
I think I can do that. Some of you may have seen some of the interviews that happened during the recent Euro elections. I did 10 interviews, many of them on the BBC, radio and television. I supported party policy, I supported the party leader, I supported other members of the party. I didn't give a millimetre, I won't give a millimetre. I will read the manifesto and I will make sure that I am absolutely on song with the manifesto. That's how it should be. All members should read it. We need to make the manifesto more approachable. There needs to be a digest version so that people can read a 2-page manifesto and get a good rough idea of the policies that they are supposed to be supporting as members and that they will actually defend when they go on the media, when they talk to people. But we also obviously need to have a longer manifesto. The current manifesto is both too long and too short. We need a digest which is short, we need a full version which goes into some detail so that people can look up stuff if there's real dispute or if there's a reason to look deeper into it. But the main point is we need to support the manifesto and the party. And sometimes there are things in it that we may not personally agree with. But politics is about choosing a party that largely represents your views, largely represents your politics. And even if there are things in there that you don't 100% agree with, you're not going to achieve it as an independent. You might, but it's unlikely. We choose parties, we build parties, we join parties so that as a group, en masse, we can achieve something. And there are going to be things in there you don't support. I know that when I go into an interview, I support UKIP policy, I'm UKIP, that's me, that's it. I'm not going to criticise it. I'm not going to apologise for it or anything that the party's done. I'm going to defend it.
Thank you. Right, well, Paul Nuttall was parachuted in and elbowed out the existing PPC in Stoke. That went well, didn't it? I don't propose to stir up any Welsh hornets' nests, by the way, so I'll stop there. We are being encouraged, we have been encouraged under Gerard's time to get PPCs in place in case there's another snap general election. I doubt very much if Mike will change that policy at all. I think it's vital we keep our PPCs in place because you just don't know. Every PPC, and I'm one by the way, should keep themselves up to date with the current manifesto. And remember, if it's going to be more open, you're going to have an input into policy, it's there. You should be there all the time as a PPC. It's very important that training is there. Now, every senior member, the leader and his team, and of course it will be he, since I was the only woman who's withdrawn, it is a technique to hound people you've got for interview and to push them down an avenue they don't particularly want to take and they did not believe they'd been brought onto the programme to talk about. It's a technique. So are the techniques to rebut that. And I would like all leaders and spokespeople to have that training. And there is absolutely no reason why that should not be open to all the PPCs. Now, if there's a by-election and the PPC wants to stand, let the membership in that constituency decide. Them or somebody else. No parachutes.
Yeah, I think first of all, the most important thing to do is to make sure that you have credible candidates in every single seat, and not just parliamentary seats, every council seat, every assembly seat. That's one of the first things that we have to do. If I was elected leader, I certainly wouldn't want to be parachuted into any seat. Even if it meant me just standing where I lived and I lost. That's just the right thing to do. And that's what you'll get with me. It's about the local candidates and drawn on their experiences. There may be some anomalies there. I can't say there may well be if there isn't a candidate, but that's a bridge that we should cross when we come to it. It should always be, first and foremost, the local person, the local activist, the one that's always been there. That's how it should be. When it comes to training, that's something that we failed at consistently as a party. And again, if you go online and you look at my Go Grassroots manifesto, you will see that I want to make sure that all candidates have uniform training, which is rolled out from the party. So we'll be carrying out road shows in every area and try and make it as accessible as we can to make sure that every candidate has the training and the tools that they need in order to fight for this party. And also, I would like to see that leaflets, social media, all of those things, you are given them. You're not scrabbling around at the last minute to try and get these things to happen when you have an election. the main party is forcing these things on you and saying this is what you've got, this is what you need, this is what you've got to run with. But again, it goes back to the foundation of where I come from. It's about you, and local candidates should absolutely be that, local.
There's a point about the constitution here that needs to be made. I mean, I'm happy if other candidates speak about it. There's something that needs to be said about the constitution here.
If we come to Freddy, and then if you want to raise
Oh,
that
sorry,
one.
I forgot you had me. Sorry.
Yes, but tell me which
No,
one,
you go
because
ahead.
I'm probably going to raise it myself. Great. Well, I learned to not listen to the National Party 4 years ago, which I've been running London. I just ran London myself, otherwise we'd have run ourselves into the ground if we'd listened to the National Party. Election addresses wouldn't have got produced in time. Everything would have happened wrong. Candidates wouldn't have been trained. Vetting wouldn't have happened in time. So, for example, for the 2017 snap general election, we had just come reeling out of throwing all our resources into a certain city in the north of England, where Mr. Nuttall decided to make a glorious stand, complete with 2 degrees, and he didn't have, and 1 degree he didn't have, and various other things he shouldn't have talked about. When we came into that, I simply called a large meeting in London of all the inexperienced new candidates and a smattering of good ones. For example, I certainly wouldn't have called Richard to it. He would have gained nothing from that meeting because it was to train people how to be candidates. And after they've dealt with me, dealing with the mainstream media is pretty easy because they get hit every which way. Quick questions coming at them. We do media interviews, we do television and radio, we did hustings, we also did central things. What not to avoid, how to walk on water, i.e. how to know where the stones are. What not to go down route-wise, because this will lead to traps. And often this meant with candidates realizing that they were better off taking a more paper candidate route. But this sort of training needs to be rolled out nationally. I know what needs to be done. We did it in London with good effect. Let's do the same thing nationally, including Wales, of course. Thank you.
Point that Richard wants to raise, and if anyone else wants to come back on Richard's point.
It's just the rules are, I mean, leaving aside the issue of having regional training days, in fact, the rules are that branches can and should have hustings for PPCs. And if you're a member in good standing, you've got through vetting, and you're entitled to be a PPC, you're entitled to turn up at any branch in the country to put yourself forward, to stand on the stage and say, please members, local members here, choose me to be your PPC because I'm the best one because X, Y, and Z. And the members are entitled to vote on who they have as their constituency candidate. And that, I think, is how it should be, because we often have a situation where you have multiple people that want to stand, obviously, in a certain constituency where we have good results. And then we also have constituencies where we don't have such good results and people are unwilling to stand. And there may be people that wish to stand but might have to travel a bit to do that. I stood in 2017 in Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner, which is about 45 minutes to an hour's drive from where I live. I didn't stand where I live because I had put candidates in all 3 of the constituencies that belong to my branch. And so I was prepared to go a bit further to be a candidate elsewhere.
But Richard, what's the constitutional point here?
The constitutional point is that all members in good standing, if they go through vetting, are entitled to turn up at a branch hustings to say, please choose me as your parliamentary candidate, and you don't have to belong to that branch, you don't have to live in the area. You could come from Scotland to Cornwall and say, please choose me as your candidate for Parliament.
As I did too in...
Freddie,
yes, those are the rules.
Sorry, Freddie, did you want to say?
As I did too when I took on the irresistibly named James Brokenshire in what was the headquarters of the BNP. That's another reason for choosing it. Take the battle to the enemy in some instances. And also that was the constituency, Old Bexley and Sidcup, which had given that man so dear to us, that gentleman who brought us into the EU by the back door, Mr. Edward Heath. And I said, you've got to atone here in Old Bexley and Sidcup. I was a candidate who won his hustings there, simply because the opponent saw I was coming, the existing candidate who was local, and he decided to avoid the bloodbath. But yes, I don't understand what the constitutional point was being made, simply because this is in the rules. Of course you can go and stand wherever you want, and I don't think you're called a parachutist, as Helena said. Indeed so.
Thank you, Freddie.
But a good grab of time.
On
very collegiate.
Do you want to add anything on the point?
No,
No, no.
but it's important that it is people's voice and that is respected. And that has not always been the case.
Okay, right, we've got about half an hour till 5 o'clock. I want to finish by 5.
Oh, no.
That's
ridiculous. We've done hundreds of miles. We've gone for longer.
Well, at this point, I'd like to open questions to the floor. So, anyone that has any burning ones, we'll start with Alan and then stand up you noted. Alan, if you'd like to ask a question.
Can I have 30 seconds before I ask my question?
If there's 30 seconds,
I think we're lucky that we've got 4 really good candidates sat in front of us. And whichever one becomes leader, I'm not going to be upset. It's not the one I chose. You've made a really difficult choice now, but we've got a good leader. And been member 10 years now. I think that's the first time I could have said that. Okay, right. The question is, I stood in the last district elections. A colleague of mine decided to stand as an independent. He's back in the cabinet room of our district council. We're on an equal standing, I would like to say. I'm back driving a truck again. I'm not in that district council. I'm not in that cabinet room. I've got round, I've done all the work that you do. I've got the doors. I'm as well known. I've done good work. Sorry, I don't like blowing my own trumpet. I've done good work.
I understand.
I've been for 4 years. The reason I'm not back in
Yes, we
is because
understand.
of the UKIP brand.
Yes, I understand.
And this is what needs changing.
May I
You
take
can do all the
a
work
question
you talked about, but it's also how UKIP is perceived at the top level.
Wonderful. So we'll have, thank you, Alan. So 1 minute responses. So basically about the perception of the UKIP brand and where we've got to now. Freddie?
Indeed, you're completely correct. And this is disgraceful that we've got to this. It's not because they've been bad persons right at the top. Gerard Batten isn't bad. He isn't mad either. He's just got this wrong. And it's as simple as that. We all get it wrong. When we get things wrong, we say, sorry, perhaps, but we stop doing the same thing. I can quote any number of physicists who've said it, but my fellow candidates have heard me on the subject of physics before. I can assure you some pretty good ones, better ones than Einstein have said this is nutty to go on doing the same thing. It's not going to change. So we want being UKIP to be an advantage, not to be a millstone, not to be an albatross around your neck. We've already got the ancient mariner here. He leads the Labour Party with his gimlet eye and he's stoppist one of 3. We don't need any reminders of nonsense like that. We are indeed a party who should be an advantage. We got the referendum to happen. We won the referendum. It wasn't the Tories, certainly not in London. They were hiding away doing the assembly elections while we were fighting for the country. But we have to change it. You need an air war, not just rearranging deck chairs at branch and regional levels and county levels. You need an air war. You need a leader who will take the fight to them, and you will be proud to be UKIP again. And we will be an electoral advantage, not a handicap as you experienced. I do apologise for what has happened to you. You're not alone.
Okay, and then we'll go to Ben, please.
Yeah, I mean, Freddy's quite right in many respects. Not all of them. There's many things that have contributed to the situation that we find ourselves in, and I don't think that we can pin the blame on any one thing either. We have obviously the Brexit Party, which has caused us considerable problems, but let's not forget who our natural enemies are, and they are the Labour and the Conservative Party, not the Brexit Party, and we shouldn't focus on that. But I'm really sorry for your situation, and unfortunately, again, it's certainly not isolated, and that is a massive problem, and it is all to do with our direction of travel. And what you've essentially seen is that what we've been trying to sell and what we've focused on, and I'm not saying they aren't important arguments, because they are, but by focusing on them, it just doesn't resonate with the vast swathes of voters. You know, many of the things that may be seen as being London-centric or North-centric, they won't relate to where you stood. So it's got to be about local issues, and you've got to be given the support to stand. And I hope that if I'm elected leader, that we can cut across, and instead of being insular and looking inside and fighting each other to death all the time, we're actually focusing on being an external political party trying to win elections.
Thank you.
Alan, is it? Well, I lost my county council seat. Well, that was Theresa May's snap election. And I was begged by people I've been working with to stand as an independent on my local district council. This toxicity problem is why I went off on a rant at one of my council meetings and said, right, I think I'll put my name forward, what do you think about it? And I hope from Mike's opening statement you understand where he's coming from and why I backed him, that we have to change or we are going nowhere. And a central plank of getting back into the swing of things is to focus on our presence locally, to get down and dirty and do the work. And I'm sure you were doing that. I know I was. I've got pictures of me scrubbing bollards. That's how you build up your influence. That's how you get the people to trust you and vote for you nationally. So yes, we must focus on the local elections and we must change or we are finished.
And Richard finally.
Yes, one, thank you, Alan, for your hard work for the party and everybody else who's done all that hard work too. Back when you were elected, UKIP probably had the unique selling point that we were the party that was pushing for a referendum, pushing for Brexit. And that's how so many UKIP people did get elected, because we were associated with that policy. That was the driving issue. And that's how people like you got elected. Not that you shouldn't be, you should be, but we had that point, that had to be driven home. That's gone now. We've converted the other parties, or some of them at least. We've got the Brexit Party named after it. We've got the independent group named again after independence and so on, although it's of course a big lie. But the point is that we changed politics because we won the referendum. And now we start again. We're back down at that low level where we need to have a unique selling point that people are going to vote for again. And that's the situation that we're in. It took years to get there. Think of 2003. That advice would say, oh, let's abandon the Brexit, because then people will like us and they'll vote for us. And we didn't abandon Brexit. We kept going until we managed to make it popular again. We need to do that with our other policies. The situation you're in is more because of those circumstances. It's not that the party has gone wrong.
And question from Shannon.
It's all very well. This is to you all as potential leaders, and you're speaking for Mike. To say, it's very easy with words to say, let's have a structure by which we will get people elected. And in branches, we obeyed by making sure people filled posts, making sure that people went through the process and were actually registered. But that gets shot if the leader, top down, shafts the person who's had the post and parachutes in someone on top, and that's Newport West.
Okay, so
now that must not happen again.
Stan, I think we've...
So, if you could answer that one, please.
Stan, I think we've already had question 6 referred to the parachuting of candidates.
No, this is specific as to what the leader would do if the leader if there was a structure in place and the leader thought, no, I'm going to do this top down. That's not the question that was asked before.
We'll
go first to whoever wants to go first, but I had Helena first. Okay, Richard, you're
I'm happy to do it.
Go on then, Helena, you go
Yeah,
first.
ladies first.
Mike's not a lady, of course.
This is Mike's feminine side, remember.
Mike's feminine
I am
side,
sure
absolutely.
I'm speaking for Mike when I say this would not be tolerated. I would not tolerate it. I could not support a leader who was going to continue not listening to the membership and continue with the corruption. You were the PPC, and this is the whole point. We should have PPCs who we can trust. Now, you might get a PPC who, in the sort of pressure of the by-election, says, well, actually, I'm not able to commit to what I need to do because it's by-election, who is willing to stand aside, and then the branch can vote at an open hustings. Remember, that's in the Constitution. That's different. If you were willing to be that candidate and you've been working that constituency, you should not have been shoved aside. My apologies, Neil. Because you're a working candidate in your own right.
Richard.
I agree entirely. The branches have the right to hold a hustings so that the branch members can vote on who their parliamentary candidate is going to be, and that should be sacrosanct. It's in the Constitution. I agree with it 100%. If you elect me as leader, I guarantee you I will not interfere in branches choosing their candidates unless there are serious reasons, like, for instance, evidence of criminality or something like that.
Okay. And Ben, please. Got anything to add?
It's pretty clear where I come from. It's bottom up. It's as simple as that. I've been, or I've had that done to me recently as well. I fell foul of the leader's kind of decision in terms of a role. And, you know, that's fine. I'm big enough and ugly enough, not a problem, I can deal with that. But we don't want this situation. If you look at the Constitution, I know we've all kind of referred to it, but for instance, the leader is there to advise on political direction, not actually take it. The leader is just to lead, but it's lead a party that they carry with them. And that's what I want to achieve. Carry people that are like-minded and all moving in the same direction. Not by duress, not forcing them to do it because they want to be there. But the party will be turned upside down and run from the bottom up. So power to the branch.
How will you know? How will you know what the party thinks? You've got no method, no scheme.
I'll use your software. That's the answer. Right.
I'll come back on that. I mean, what I will, can I just have a
I'll read the
Freddie,
I understand the dilemma, but here, far be it from me to look up a rule book or whatever, but I think the point has been missed. This was a by-election. The NEC has the power to impose somebody inside, does it not? So we won't miss the word for the trees, mate. Know your rules. The NEC pushes them in. And if the NEC wanted to push Neil in, I, as a leader, would have limited powers to annoy them, NEC members, though I think a healthy argumentative state between the NEC and the leadership is actually good, because absolute power corrupts on either side. The NEC can actually call more shots than the leader does. It's a bit like the American system. But here, the thing which would address me is the branch, let's say the branch's choice disagrees with the NEC's, what the NEC would like to impose. I would like, as a leader, to look at both of them and see who'll do the job better, and the job better is get us more votes to start and have a better chance of winning. And I just do it objectively there. And I'm afraid here, I'm very happy to admit, I don't know if there was a better local candidate. I know when Neil Hamilton uses the word barnacle, he does it so wonderfully, because he referred to Theresa May as not the captain of SS Great Britain, but a barnacle. So he is a gifted public speaker. Maybe he was better. I don't know enough, though. I don't know enough.
The NEC did not make the decision. It was Braine who made the decision.
In that case, possibly it was wrong. But it was the NEC who should have.
Just for information, was the NEC a committee appointed by the NEC of NEC members that made the decision?
So I was right.
Another question, Pat.
You've all made mention of the Constitution. As a student of the Constitution and my field being governance, I look at it and think, I'm sorry, I'm a student of the Constitution. It's my field of expertise is governance. It was written by Crowther to ring-fence himself.
Yes.
The final line says it cannot be reformed without a majority of 2/3 of the membership. How will you put through any kind of reforms that you're proposing with that system?
Okay, Freddie, if you'd like to.
Right. Article 13, we have not pre-agreed this. I had no idea you were going to ask this question. It's for because people are going to think otherwise. Article 13 of the Constitution says there are 3 ways to change the Constitution. One is if the NEC agrees completely, in which case it is the NEC just pushes it forward and a rubber stamp from the membership is required. Simply a percentage of the members who vote. Clause 2, no. If the NEC agree with it, it is a 2/3 majority of those members who vote. The second way to change it is if the NEC sort of agree, but they can break down the proposal into individual bits. Yeah, this is a proposal that has come forward from the membership, fulfilling other criteria. In that case, the bits are individually voted upon, and in these cases, 2/3 majority of the members voting is required. The devil's detail, no matter how much Pat shakes her head, I'm right. It's a matter of fact, Pat. The third method is the one you wanted. The third one is if the NEC doesn't agree, in which case you need a 2/3 majority of the membership. Full stop. Not of the membership voting. Now, we've never been able to get 2/3 of them voting at all. So how could we possibly get 100% of that 2/3 voting in one direction? So it is impossible to change the Constitution, and this is one of Colonel Sanders' many delightful things he's left us with. Find a way to reform the Constitution with an NEC that is with us and wants to get rid of this blockage, this bung in the path of UKIP's progress. Thank you.
Ben, please. Ben.
Sorry?
Would you like to answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot to add, really. I think you're both right. I know that Pat knows the Constitution inside and out, and I think you probably do as well. But I think you're both right. And the NEC, being a current member, we do make very small changes to the Constitution as is. But anything big, anything contentious, would generally go to conference, and the membership would be asked. But yeah, not really a lot I can add on that. But I think
EGMs, actually.
Well, Richard.
If you make me leader, I will campaign to fix this problem. And it will be fixed by getting the NEC, getting people elected onto the NEC who pledge that they're actually going to vote to change this issue in the Constitution. And we have elections coming in November. We need people on the NEC who support changing this. And we need to explain this to the members so they understand that it's impossible to fix our Constitution even where it's broken. And the first rule that needs to be changed in the Constitution is it needs to become possible to actually change our Constitution. So that's the first thing. So I will campaign for this. I hope that we'll get to the stage where we've got enough people on the NEC who support this idea and enough members in the party who recognise that we need to get more power in the hands of the members to change the Constitution without depending on the say-so only of the NEC.
And I'll write the software to do it. My turn this time.
Helena.
But I think it's clear, and I hope you're pleased, that we have 4 candidates who are determined to deal with what you might call the Crowther conundrum. I think Mike's commitment is very clear from his decision that he will hold this consultation at the conference. And I mean, this is moved on because he was hoping to actually call for it as an EGM, but I think that was again constitutionally impossible. I hope, Pat, that he is going to be consulting with you with your expertise in governance if he is elected, and this change will take place because whichever of the 4 candidates who elect you are going to get it. If the will is there, we must change it. Now, does everybody in this room want to bring about this change? Will you all attend conference and make sure we get this change? It is time Crowther was put to bed.
Thank you. Okay, we are moving up to 5 o'clock. I'd now like to invite each of the candidates to make some closing remarks. So,
can you say that again?
We're moving up to 5 o'clock, so I'd like to invite you all to make 2 minutes worth of closing remarks, and we'll start with Helena, then go to Ben, then to Richard, and finish with Fred. So Helena first.
Okay, right. So I haven't got anything prepared by Mike, so I'll just shoot from the heart for me. Why did I back Mike? Why didn't I stay in the race? I think I've explained that in terms of wanting to concentrate on policy, Mike and I were pretty much singing from the same hymn sheet. Now, you have got someone who, like me, came up through the ranks. Now, so far, I've only got to county chairman. Mike's been a chairman. He's been a regional chairman. He then got elected as an MEP. He has been on the inside. Now, we have here, Freddy,
regional chairman,
on the inside of what's going on and what's going wrong. This is my go-to when I want to know where the corruption is in the party and who is around, who shouldn't be. But actually, I think Mike knows more than you do, Freddie.
I'm sure he'd make a better spy.
Well, yes, we've got... Yes, I was always going to say I was going to have you as my spy. And I would have wanted Mike on my team without a doubt for his expertise. He has been intimately involved with the way the party has been run, so he has seen how it has gone wrong, and he has put a lot of work into putting the mechanisms in place to get it changed and get it right. That on its own isn't enough. When I spoke on my withdrawal speech, when I declared for Mike, I said, I'm going to tell you some uncomfortable truths, the things you don't want to know, about how we have gone wrong, about how leaders have gone wrong, and how it's brought us down to where we are almost finished. Now, I'm sure most of you realise that Henry Bolton was put in by Nigel Farage to let this party go bankrupt. That was why you had all these wonderful things. It was the opposite of the swan gliding along with the little feet. It was, all this, and then we had this latest administration go wrong, took the wrong path. I am firmly convinced that Mike will take us down the right path to win the confidence of the electorate of this country.
and I said in the beginning, we're destined now to make a choice on a direction. In my humble opinion, the direction hasn't worked, which is why I continue to talk about the grassroots focus. Now, the reason I do that is I'm probably better placed than any other candidate, with the exception of Helena, who isn't a candidate now. I've been a town councillor, okay? I've been a town mayor, I've been a district councillor, I've been a vice chair of a local authority, and that is exactly where I believe that UKIP should be putting its focuses and actually doing the work. And to do that, I want to basically not sell you a computer program, all right? I want to give you the ability and the support to be able to sell yourself on the doorstep. Okay, that's the key. The party itself is in a position whereby we don't have lots of money to spend. Okay, what we now need to do is to draw on the experience and the expertise of all the good people that we have left. We are not a hollow husk. We are a party that will get our shit, apologies for my language, into one sock and go again, okay? With all the external problems that we kind of face, be it the Brexit party, be it, you know, the EU referendum, and that's kind of been taken away from us now, we have to be the party of pro-Brexit, if you like, but we have to be the party of post-Brexit, with real policies that people can relate to, okay? We need to stop being so insular and fighting each other, and we need to sell ourselves to the public again. And when we're doing that with exciting policy and things that every hard-working man and woman of this country can understand and relate to, we'll win again. We will. And I promise you one thing, I am not the leader of old. I will listen. And it's not about browbeating you down. I want to take you with me. And to answer Richard's point, which he asked earlier, the fact is, give me a year. If there's not an increase in membership, if we haven't started to win things or do better, then I've failed. But I promise you, we won't. We will do better. We will start to win. And under my leadership, UKIP will be the force that it was once before, if not better.
Software for canvassing is used by all other parties, Lib Dems, Conservatives, Tories. We're one of the only parties that doesn't do it. We're failing because we're not actually being efficient gathering our results. So you can be dismissive about it, but all the other parties do it, and we're losing. So we do need that. I will be in the bar afterwards. Anybody who wants to see the canvassing software that has been used and is under development, speak to me, I'll show it to you. Leaflets. We have people in the party who can make leaflets that are legible and that get the message across. And we don't do it. We don't do it enough. Okay? Instead, we put out too much stuff like this that no one ever reads.
It's a CV, okay, not a leaflet.
So we have presentation, right? We have common sense. Okay, we have brains. We have a candidate who combines all of those. I am that candidate. I'm going to give you common sense, better presentation, and proper brains behind the operation so that we get it right and that we are much, much more efficient. UKIP is about independence. It's in our name. There are so many things that we still need to be independent from, not just the EU. We need to be independent from the creeping Marxism in the West. Jeremy Corbyn, an example of that. We need to be independent from data tyranny, where people are collecting so much data about us and it's in the hands of corporations and government. And we, the party, are not doing that ourselves. We need to be doing more of that ourselves. But we need to actually worry about a digital bill of rights so that people's privacy is protected. That should be our next big raft of policy, because we're losing that battle online in social media. We're losing the ability to properly rebel, to be civilly disobedient, because we have no freedom anymore. We need to protect British values. Go back to the 23rd of June 2016 and remember what it felt like when those results started rolling in. Sunderland, 61%. Remember that feeling, because we can get back to that feeling. But we have to organise well, we have to work hard, we have to change the way the party works. It's not just the message, it's the way the party works. That's where we need to transform the party. Thank you.
Well, apparently I've got brains. Let's show you I've got heart, which is a lot more important. Richard kicked off with a very pertinent story about where he came from. I'll tell you where I came from. Tale of two grandfathers. My paternal grandfather was a mainstay of the British Empire. He was proud to be so. He had he was honoured several times. He had apparently 3 statutory instruments. I can find a trace of 2, where he was allowed to stay on past retirement age. When they finally forced him to retire, he went and worked for the other side, which is the private corporations, to fight tax. My other grandfather was a fine art restorer who had a shop, F.W. Appleby and Sons, behind the National Gallery. He had 2 children. The older one was my mother. When he was relatively young, in the last days of the European theatre war, World War II, he contracted a severe cold. He would not see a doctor. He refused to go to hospital on the grounds that the hospitals were for our lads. My grandma was already very worried because her half-brother had died he was one of the merchant navy seamen whose bones lie on the bottom of the North Sea somewhere or the other, sunk by a U-boat, presumably. Never came back. But my grandfather, who refused to go to the hospital because they were for our lads, died of completely avoidable pneumonia. When I spoke to my grandmother about all of this, and she said, I asked her, were you ever frightened of anything up to that time? Were you frightened that we would lose World War II? I know a lot about this subject. She said, never. Of course we're going to win. We need to rediscover that courage. We need to rediscover that commitment, that certainty that we can prevail, that right beats might. UKIP will be great again. Give me a chance, give me the tools, I'll finish the job. In the bar, you can have all the Churchill quotes you want. I have them installed hardwired. Thank you for listening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for everyone for coming. Thank you for 3 candidates and substitute. Neil's just going to say a couple of words, and then we will be going to the bar next door afterwards, and everyone is welcome to join us.
A couple means 2, several this year.
Well, ladies, I hope you've been as encouraged as I have by what we witnessed here this afternoon. We've had an interesting, informative and even entertaining time, and I think that this shows that UKIP is in good heart. Things are not quite as gloomy as you might think. Our membership is still up in the mid-20,000s. It could have been a lot more. Many times in our party never got beyond 50,000. In spite of all the millions of pounds we've washed through our coffers and the media profile which we enjoyed, the problem was that we had a hugely dynamic leader who was chaotic in his personal and daily life, and he organised the structure of the party in such a way that that was communicated through to the rest of the organisation. The result is, in spite of all that, we have nothing whatsoever in organisational structure to show for all that we've achieved over the last 6 or 7 years. Now I can see that we have the opportunity to change all that, because collectively all our candidates today are aware of the nature of the problem and indeed how to cure it. Of course they're all different in their different ways, but they all have in fundament the same message of how to restore UKIP to its greatness. And I think that we have a quadrumvirate here. Whoever actually emerges as the winner of this election, which this collective body I think is going to transform UKIP from what it became to what it needs to be, because there is no doubt that we need to continue beyond Brexit. On the assumption that Boris does deliver Brexit, let's give him that for the moment, then the raison d'etre of the Brexit party disappears. But UKIP has a whole range of policies where the other parties have left the field clear for us. In Wales, abolished the Welsh Assembly throughout the country, green taxes and charges that are impoverishing the poor and penalising those. A whole range of issues that I'm not going to enumerate for you now. But there is a gap in the market for UKIP which exists quite apart from the USB which brought us into existence, that is, to recover our national sovereignty by leaving the EU. So I'm hugely encouraged today. Thank all our candidates for putting themselves forward and incurring the vast expense which individuals have to incur in order to be candidates in such an election, for having the stamina to travel all over the country in different directions at different times, often not in the most sensible way. That's perhaps symptomatic of the problems that UKIP has, is that there was no structure to the election campaign itself, and the burden of that imposed upon our individual candidates, I think, is not to be underestimated. So I'd like to thank them for all that they put into this, and for the reinvigoration of our party, which is on the point of recommencing. And I'd like to thank you all today for being